if you're flying on a domestic flight, you don't need a passport. And
Oh,
guess what? There were some people who did have their passport, some people with EU national ID cards, but the rest of them are just waking up at Paris Charles de Gaulle. All they wanted to do was get from Scotland to England, and they're in Plymouth,
oh
France,
God.
sleeping in an airport terminal.
A good day to stay indoors if you can, with Storm Isha causing problems. But if you have to go somewhere, will you make it? There's only one person to ask. Yes, it's Simon Calder. Of course it is, the independent travel correspondent who's been watching the chaos unfold over the past 24 hours and joins us from London's King's Cross station. Morning, Simon.
Good morning, Asma. Yes, well, just as Ron DeSantis doesn't have a path to victory, people from London King's Cross don't have a path to Scotland either. No trains from here going to anywhere north of Newcastle until at least afternoon. Within Scotland itself, there's no trains running at all during the morning rush hour. That, of course, is going to affect not just people within Scotland, but on the Anglo-Scottish trains. So the normal arrivals here from Glasgow and Edinburgh aren't going to be arriving round about lunchtime, and neither will they be turning up at London Euston.
Yeah. Now,
Elsewhere,
oh, go on.
the rail problems seem to be on, would you believe, overrunning engineering works, which is taking place between Gatwick and Croydon. That's really critical. It's the main Brighton line to London. So there's going to be hundreds of thousands of people affected by that, including airline passengers who want to get to or from the UK's second busiest airport. And wherever you're going, if you're trying to get there by train, then good luck. You really need to check in advance. And if you're flying, well, you've quite possibly woken up somewhere you didn't expect to be.
That's what I was going to ask you about, Simon. The thing I saw the most on social media yesterday was people who had been diverted here, there, and everywhere. Many attempts to land, and people had to go to Bristol, ending up in France. Is that going to continue today?
Right. Well, let me tell you just how awful it was. I don't think I've ever seen something like this where you get a domestic flight. This was EasyJet flight 319 from Edinburgh to Bristol. Took off normally shortly after 4 o'clock. It's a 1 hour hop down to Bristol. Flew around over the Severn for half an hour. And then the pilots just decided, right, we're out of here. There was nowhere in the UK they could divert to. So, yes, they went to Paris Charles de Gaulle, which was fine, except that, of course, if you're flying on a domestic flight, you don't need a passport.
Oh.
And guess what? There were some people who did have their passport, some people with EU national ID cards, but the rest of them are just waking up at Paris Charles de Gaulle. All they wanted to do was get from Scotland to England, and they're in Plymouth, France, sleeping in an airport terminal. So pretty miserable for them. They're in a worse position than the people flying from Manchester to Dublin yesterday afternoon on Ryanair. This was just a short half-hour hop. They got diverted, excitingly, to Beauvais, a small town in northern France. But because Ryanair oddly says you've got to have your passport when you're flying between the UK and Ireland, even though the law doesn't require it, they all actually managed to get out and find hotels. But today, to answer your question, we have widespread cancellations. First wave of flights from Heathrow. British Airways has got a total of 22 flights in and out of Heathrow cancelled. But there's also cancellations to places like Istanbul and Halifax in Canada because the planes couldn't get in yesterday. London City also looking a bit bleak. The trouble is, for all the many people, I count many tens of thousands who were diverted and cancelled yesterday, they don't automatically go to the front of the queue. Anybody who's booked a flight today is going to be travelling first, and then if there's a few seats left, then people might get where they need to be.